Welcome to Live, Love, Engage, the podcast where we share practical advice from a spiritual perspective on how to create a life and business with more impact, influence, and income. I am your host, Gloria Grace Rand, the Insightful Copywriter and founder of the Love Method. My mission is to help you stop doubting yourself so you can live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically. Namaste and welcome to Live, Love, Engage, streaming live today on this Monday morning in March 15th. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and I am trusting that you heard the audio on that intro. So if you could drop me a comment and let me know that for sure, I would appreciate it. But I'm hoping that it did. And of course, when I put the audio on iTunes, it will have the intro in there. But I wanted to try something new today and actually start recording this. And I wanted to talk about this morning, suffering, which doesn't sound like a very cheery subject for a Monday morning, I admit. And yet it is something that too often we engage in, and sometimes unnecessarily. Let me give you an example. I recently published my first book, Live, Love, Engage. Actually, it was published on February 21st, which was it became a bestseller. Everything was lovely. I should be over the moon happy, right? Well, the last couple of weeks, I have been suffering needlessly, just in a funk and not knowing. I think really it was sort of a letdown of, now that the book is done, it's like, okay, now what do I do? And it took me a bit of soul searching and meditating and doing a lot of the practices that I do to be able to come to terms with what was going on. And it really was essentially just needing to exhale and to decide that, okay, that chapter is done, pardon the expression, and it's time for a new chapter. And one of the things that I have done for a few years now is one of the things that has actually helped me to stop doubting myself and start being myself, which is the subtitle of the book, has been studying A Course in Miracles. And right now I'm doing some review lessons this week, and I loved today. So I'm going to share this with you because it is perfect in dealing with this subject about suffering, and why I'm saying that it often is needless. In fact, actually not often, it is needless for us to engage in suffering. And this is the reason why. So lesson 116 in A Course in Miracles says, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And that's the line. And then there's a review lesson here now that says, God's will is perfect happiness for me. And I can suffer, but from the belief there is another will apart from his. So what does that mean? Well, to me, it means essentially that if we are focusing in on anything other than God's will being perfect happiness, that's where the suffering comes in. And it's really about letting our egos dictate what we're thinking about. And if we can just focus in on the fact that God's will for us is perfect happiness, even when there are things that don't go our way, or perhaps we have an illness or something happens where we find ourselves suffering, if we can instead find it within ourselves to be able to switch somehow, and to remember that. And maybe it takes writing that down as an affirmation. In fact, I probably should have done that. Maybe I can type that up real quick, and I'm gonna display it here. So to be able to remember that God's will for us is perfect happiness. It really and truly is. And think about that. So there's a couple layers here. So number one is, I believe that we are all created in God's image. And of course, since God is perfect and all powerful, it created our whole universe, for heaven's sakes, as well as us, then because of that, God really wants us to be happy. And if we're not happy, it is because we have forgotten that. Because we're not consciously thinking that God wants us to be happy. So if I'm not happy right now, what's going on? And that's something that you could do. You can ask yourself, okay, I'm not happy. something is annoying me. Something is perturbing me. Maybe I'm sad about something. And that is natural, because we are going to feel those emotions, because we are human beings after all. But where we have the choice, and this is one of the wonderful things about the fact that we are human beings and that God did give us free will to choose, is that in any given moment, we can feel our feelings, and we can feel sadness, we can feel anger, we can feel frustration. And then we can say, okay, do I want to continue to feel this way, really? Because what is the payoff for me to feel this way? Maybe someone will feel sorry for me, but maybe not. And instead, I'm just feeling miserable just for the sake of feeling miserable. And I don't know about you, but if you had a choice between feeling miserable and feeling happy, which would you choose? For me, I choose happiness. I mean, there have been some moments where I have wallowed in the miserableness, in the feeling sad. But again, for the most part, I prefer feeling happy. I really do. And that's ultimately what I wound up doing last week, was deciding that, okay, yeah, I can feel miserable. I can feel out of sorts. Okay. Confused, frustrated, whatever. Or I can start to choose to do things that light me up, that make me feel good. And one of those is going to the beach. I spent many months going to the beach on Fridays when I was writing my book. And even though I'm not actively writing a book right now, I do have an idea for it, but I'm not quite ready to start the actual process of it. I still love going to the beach. It's a great place for me to connect with God, actually, because that's always being out in nature, even just in a forest. When I was a kid, I would go to Girl Scout camp, and that would be one of my favorite things, would be to hike in the woods, or to go to the beach and to listen to the waves and to just feel the sun on your face and the wind in your hair. That is my idea of perfect happiness. And so when I spent some time there, it really helped shift my perspective. And I was able to start, again, reconnecting with God, in a sense, because I did spend some time actually meditating there. And that's what I believe it also takes. We have a choice on how we want to feel in any given instance, in any given moment. And then it just requires making that choice. And like I said, sometimes it's not easy. I'm not saying it is. But it takes practice. And the more you do that, the more you do practice it, it does get easier. And I will say that over the years, I have gotten better at being able to get myself out of a funk. where it might have taken me weeks or days or something. And now I can usually quickly pick it up within perhaps, minutes, even at times. But it takes diligence and takes practice. And isn't that what life is all about? I mean, that is what we have. That's what we've been given. We've been given this gift of life, and we get to practice. We get to do new things. We get to stumble and fall and get up again and try again. And that's what makes life worth living, is we just keep going, just putting one foot in front of the other and keep going. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to be able to share with you today. And so I encourage you, I've had this affirmation up for those of you who are watching the live stream, or even if you're watching later, I'm going to attempt to put this up on my YouTube channel. Just remember that God's will for us is perfect happiness. So you get to choose and to remember that God wants us to be happy. So if we are spending any time in suffering, that means that we are resisting. It means we're resisting God. It means we're separating ourselves from God. And that's not a good way to be, frankly. So, and again, whatever you believe, I don't want to necessarily impose my beliefs on you. I would just invite you to consider. And if you don't like the word God, then substitute the word, source is will for us, or the universe is will for us, because I believe there's something bigger than us out there. Something created us, and it is all some sort of energy. And that's what we're made of. We have this God spark within us, so we can be happy. It just takes deciding. And when you decide, you cut off whatever came before, and you can choose something new. And my wish for you today is to choose happiness. So that's going to do it for this edition of Live, Love, Engage. And as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.